Welcome, and thank you for coming. I'm Lieutenant Bill Alexander. I'm the Assistant Commander of the Media Relations Division for Prince George's County Police Department. We're here today to highlight the recent arrest of 3 suspects who detectives have linked to more than 50 residential burglaries. We're going to begin today with Captain Charles Hamby. He's the commander of the Southern Region of the Regional Investigation Division. He'll go over the details of the actual investigation, and then we'll bring in Major Raphael, the commander of District 4, and he'll speak briefly about how these kinds of crimes impact the community. Captain Hamby.
Good afternoon. Like the Lieutenant said, I'm the commander of the Regional Investigation Division, Southern Region, which encompasses District 4 and District 5 in Prince George's County. In January 2013, a case was initiated by Detectives Coyner and Gross behind me, where they had identified a series of burglaries by the same modus operandi, the MO, and also the property that were taken, the items that were taken from the home. It was a series of 35 burglaries altogether they ended up identifying, and they focused on this investigation. They identified this group and became focused on this case because it was an organized group, and any organized burglary group is a bigger danger to the community. And because they had identified the houses, they had a good idea where to start. Through their investigation, they were able to develop a description of the vehicle used in the burglaries because one of the victim homes actually had a surveillance camera in it, and it captured an image of the vehicle out front. They were able to develop a lookout for the patrol officers because this was critical to the investigation. They transmitted that information to the patrol officers, and in March of this year, a concerned citizen flagged down one of our patrol officers and told him about a suspicious vehicle where the individuals were selling TVs out of the back of the vehicle. Televisions were some of the items that were targeted in these burglaries, and this citizen actually took the time to get the tag of the vehicle. And this was a great break in the case because that patrol officer knew about our investigation and the lookout, contacted the detectives in the burglary suppression team, and they ran with the case. This led to interviews, search warrants, development of confidential informants, and more information that actually led to the identification of the Edwards burglary ring. This organized crew was headed by Anthony Edwards, Neil, and Jamal Cook, who have all been charged and arrested in this case. Eventually, they ended up identifying that this group used a very sophisticated method to target houses. What they did is they went into neighborhoods that were off the main drag. They had the one person in the crew would knock on the door looking for an individual, just make up a name, and if they didn't get an answer, then they would target that house and burglarize the house. It's worth noting that none of the burglaries that are charged in this case were occupied homes, but they were all single-family homes in Prince George's County. This is a sophisticated group is way more dangerous because they have a plan. They have a plan to dispose of the property and a plan of executing the crimes, which is indicated by the number of burglaries you see here, all in the Fort Washington and Oxon Hill region. So at the end of this case, we ended up sharing information with Fairfax County Police and Charles County Sheriff's Department here in Maryland, and that contributed to closures of cases in both of those regions as well. But the most important thing to take away from this is that this crew was not going to stop. There's no indication with this many burglaries from December 20th up until they were arrested. This crew was not going to stop until they were taken out of action, and this investigation by Detectives Coyner and Gross achieved that mission. So, Major Grant.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Major Grant. I'm the commander of the District 4 station in Oxon Hill. The county police department takes burglaries seriously. We understand that having your home burglarized is a devastating crime. The department is committed to apprehending these individuals who commit these crimes and ensure that they are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Now, we understand also that we need the community's help in keeping your community safe. We need the community's phone calls, the community's eyes and their ears, letting us know what's going on in your community. And as in this case right here what led to us this arrest was the community actually giving us information that led us to these individuals. So I want to thank that community member who called in that tip to us that led to this case. These calls, these tips that the community is giving us is helping us close crimes at an outstanding rate. And I just want to thank the community. I want to thank them for looking out for their community, looking out for their neighbors, and making sure their communities are safe. Thank you.
We do have time for just a few questions. Keep in mind when asking your questions that there's a large volume of information covering a large number of cases. So if you get really specific, maybe we can get you some information immediately following this press conference. Well, let me pass this back to Captain Hamby. Captain.
The total number of burglaries that we have identified linked to this group in Prince George's County are 54. And that's linked by the items that are taken. The detectives have been living this case since January. Of the volume of money, I really couldn't estimate it. I mean, it's every case. It's televisions, jewelry, and firearms. In one case in particular, a safe was taken from one home that had over $69,000 worth of jewelry and $14,000 cash in it. They were able to identify where that went as well. That's a decent figure. I mean, remember also, we're talking about Prince George's County cases. They have been implicated and charged in cases in Fairfax and in Charles County. So there were other areas that were impacted.
Did you all recover, and is that going back to some of these folks, one? And two, how were these guys disposing of this? You mentioned televisions out of the truck, but were there pawn shops or other sort of common things we've heard about involved in this? Flea markets, etc.?
I'm going to turn that over to the detectives because they're intimately familiar with the case as far as disposal.
As far as disposal, they had I guess, yes, sir. Yep. As far as disposal goes, they had an organized a way of disposing of property, and certain persons that they would bring jewelry to, and certain persons they would bring electronics to, that were, I guess, what we would like to call them, like more like an underground way of moving the property and selling it. We didn't see a lot going to the pawn shops, so I mean they knew where the property was going once they got it. So.
It sort of goes to the whole idea of how organized they were. How quickly were they able to turn property into cash?
Very, very quickly. In fact, that amazed us when we were doing the interviews of how quickly they were obtaining like a television and how quickly the television was getting disposed of. It was a matter of hours.
Were they using the internet at all?
No, believe it or not, they weren't, no.
Lead us through it again, even though part of it's been explained. They have the goods, and then
Yep.
What do they do? Do they themselves sell it or someone else?
Well, the crew has, as you might know, they had a drug problem. They were addicted to narcotics. So with the property, they were taking the property to certain people in that world, I guess is the way to describe it.
And then what did they do with it?
They would give them money or drugs, and they would dispose it and sell it. We don't actually know what they did with it from there.
So the good citizen that called in the license plate, was that car used by a crew member or by a secondary party that had gotten the stolen goods?
By a crew member, yep, one of our primary targets.
So he was actually selling it out of the trunk of his car?
Yes.
What kind of car was it?
It was a Toyota, silver Toyota FJ Cruiser.
How crucial was that tip?
It broke the case for us. We had gotten several reports on a silver SUV. We'd gotten several tags that didn't turn out to be good tags. But after a while, we were able to link that to our primary target.
How often does the county deal with these organized criminals that will, be involved in this many cases? Is this a kind of a common thing to have these crews, or?
I would not say it was a common thing, but we do see it sometimes. Most of the burglaries that we investigate, we don't just have people doing one burglary. It kind of seems like it's a trend until they get stopped, caught. But each crew is different.
The burglaries in Fairfax and other areas, are they beyond this 54? All 54, just to clarify for me, in Prince George's County that you're referring to?
Just in our district.
Just in your district?
Yes.
In our area.
During what time period? Is this from the December 12th?
We started looking at burglaries back in January of this year.
You're linking them to burglaries how far back in time?
January is when we started looking at
Just this
them.
year, all of them, or from just this year?
From beginning of January.
So I understand, the 54 burglaries are just in this Prince George's County area.
They're just in this district, yes. Yep.
And so how many are they good for in Fairfax?
I don't think we can comment on Fairfax.
This time we don't want to comment on Fairfax, too.
Or Charles County? I mean, are they good for dozens of burglaries in other jurisdictions?
We're aware of one burglary that one of our primary suspects was involved with in Charles County. We assisted Charles County detectives with that case. But as far as the other ones, they're
But they're being looked at in connection with other burglaries in other jurisdictions?
yes, yep.
In Fairfax, they've been linked to multiple burglaries, but we don't have an actual count.
Where do these guys live? Are they from Prince George's? Are they coming across the river? Where are they from?
They're from Oxon Hill.
Now, the silver Toyota FJ Cruiser, which is an SUV, right?
Yes.
And this is where a guy was selling one of the TVs off the back of that SUV, is that right?
Yep.
And that was the big tip that broke the case. Where was he selling those TVs? Can you give us a rough idea where that happened?
That was actually kind of a rare thing for this case, and I think we just got lucky on that. It was actually 7 televisions that the citizen reported to the citizen, or the citizen reported to the officer that was off duty, and they thought that was kind of strange that they had 7 flat screen televisions. But that was a common item that we were finding in our burglaries that we were taking, was electronics, high-end electronics, iPods, tablets, stuff like that.
One last question, please.
Where was he selling them? Do we know where that location was? Where?
We do, but we can't comment on it.
Can you give us a road? Was it on Branch Avenue? Was it in
Right.
the south?
District of Columbia.
Oh, in D.C.?
Yeah.
So it's
Can
not
I
in
actually
D.C.?
say and spell your names before you step away from the desk?
Sure.
All our audiences think this is great.
Detective on our left, your name?
Detective Cameron, Cameron, Coiner, Coiner.
Detective Dave Gross, Gross.
Thank you very much, everyone. And one final note, we do have one victim related to these burglaries who is willing to speak with the media. Unfortunately, she was not able to make our date and time here, but she would be available this evening. If anyone here is interested in that, come see me immediately after this, and we'll figure out how to work that out.